She walked aboard the aircraft, taking her seat in first class with eyes downcast to avoid the stares. Whispers soured into open complaints, then humiliation as flight attendants insisted she leave. Laughter followed her down the aisle as she adjusted her bag, causing her uniform to ride up just enough. The unmistakable Navy SEAL insignia tattooed across her back became visible. The cabin fell silent. When the pilot emerged and saw the tattoo, his face drained of color. He knew exactly who she was. Zola Adebayo moved through San Diego International Airport like a shadow, efficient and unnoticed. 15 years in naval special warfare had taught her to blend in. Today, she was simply being herself, a black woman in worn jeans and a faded leather jacket. Hair pulled back in a practical bun, eyes constantly scanning her surroundings from habit. The first-class boarding call for Flight 237 to Washington, D.C. echoed through the terminal. Zola shouldered her weathered duffel bag and joined the line. The message from her brother, David, burned in her mind. Dad's condition worsened. Doctor says days, not weeks. Please hurry. After 15 years of answering every call except the ones from home, she was finally going back. As she stepped aboard, the lead flight attendant's smile faltered. "Welcome aboard," she said, her tone neutral. "First class is to your right." Zola found her seat, 1C, and stowed her bag. Across the aisle, Gregory Dalton, a man in his 50s with the posture of someone who expected the world to bend to him, frowned openly. "Excuse me," Zola said quietly, needing to get past him. Gregory sighed dramatically. "I think you might be in the wrong section," he said, loud enough for others to hear. Zola simply held up her boarding pass. 1C, she settled into her seat, her movements contained and precise. Her phone vibrated. Another text from David. "Where are you? He's asking for you." An announcement came, a weather system had delayed their departure. 40 minutes, possibly longer. A flight attendant approached, offering pre-flight beverages. "Just water, please," Zola said. "Champagne," Gregory countered loudly, winking at his neighbors. "May as well enjoy the perks we pay for, right?" In the row behind her, two women in designer clothing spoke in stage whispers. "Standards really have slipped," one said. "I remember when people dressed for first class." "Maybe she's a waitress who won an upgrade," the other replied with a chuckle. "Those online contests, you know." Zola didn't react. She'd endured hostage extractions in Taliban territory, airline passenger commentary barely registered as a threat. Still, a familiar tension crept up her spine, the hypervigilance that never fully left. As the delay stretched, Gregory became the unofficial spokesman for passenger discontent. When Sandra, the head flight attendant, returned, Zola sensed trouble. "Ma'am," Sandra began with professional detachment. "I'm afraid there's been a booking error. We need to relocate you to economy class." Zola looked at her boarding pass, then back at Sandra. "This says 1C. "Yes, but our manifest shows." Finally, Gregory interrupted. "Some standards still exist." "I apologize for the inconvenience," Sandra said, lowering her voice, "but we need this seat. We can offer you credit toward a future flight." Around her, Zola noted the satisfied smirks. She'd faced enemy fire with less hostility. For a moment, she considered arguing, but years of discipline made her choose the path of least resistance. "Fine," she said quietly, gathering her bag. As she stood, Gregory muttered, "Some people just don't belong up here." The walk through the premium cabin felt longer than any mission extraction. In economy, another flight attendant, Ben, led her through packed rows. "We're completely full due to cancellations," he explained nervously. "We're trying to find you a seat." Zola stood in the crowded aisle, holding her duffel as passengers stared. The sting of public humiliation was a wound no training manual had prepared her for. She shifted her bag to her other shoulder, causing her jacket to ride up slightly. A young man seated nearby caught sight of something on her back and his eyes widened, but Zola adjusted her jacket quickly, and the moment passed. "I'll wait by the rear galley," Zola offered. As she moved toward the back, she passed a row where a small girl was looking at her. The girl leaned toward her mother and whispered. The mother glanced up at Zola, then shook her head. "No, honey, she's not a soldier. Just a lady who got downgraded." Zola almost smiled at the irony. Just a lady who had spent 6 months embedded with a combat team in Helmand province. Just a lady who had carried a wounded teammate across 3 kilometers of hostile territory. But that was the point of her career, to be invisible, to serve silently. The intercom crackled. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Robert Miller. I apologize for the continued delay." Captain Miller had piloted commercial aircraft for 15 years after his own military service. Routine was his religion, and a personal walkthrough of the cabin before takeoff was part of it. He emerged from the cockpit and noticed the empty seat, 1C. "Is a passenger missing?" he asked Sandra. "No, Captain. A booking confusion. We relocated a passenger." Miller frowned. He continued his walk, his eyes noting every detail, a habit from his military days. As he reached the back of the plane, he spotted a woman standing quietly by the rear galley. Something about her posture caught his attention, the way she stood with her back to the wall, eyes tracking movement, feet positioned for balance. She shifted slightly as a crew member passed, and her jacket rode up at the back, revealing the edge of an intricate tattoo. The captain's step faltered. He recognized the design instantly, the trident of the Navy SEALs. But this one had additional markings that only someone with specific knowledge would understand. He froze, his professional demeanor forgotten. He stared at the woman's face, and recognition dawned like a lightning strike. He knew that face from classified mission summaries. "Lieutenant Commander Adebayo," he said, his voice barely a whisper, then with more certainty. "Silver Star recipient, Helmand Province." The woman turned, her eyes meeting his. They were the eyes of a soldier who had seen too much, recognizing another who understood. In that moment of shared silence, the ambient noise of the aircraft faded away. Captain Miller straightened to his full height and offered a crisp, formal salute that would have made his drill instructor proud. "Ma'am," he said clearly, his voice carrying through the quiet cabin. "I served with the 5th Fleet Support during Operation Nightfall. Your team's actions saved my brother's unit." Nearby passengers stared in confusion. Several economy passengers who had been in the military themselves recognized the gravity of the captain's salute. Zola gave a small, acknowledging nod. The captain turned to a stunned Ben. "Lieutenant Commander Adebayo will be returning to her assigned first-class seat. Immediately." The gesture silenced the entire section of the plane. The quiet spread like a ripple, from the galley all the way to the front, where Gregory Dalton craned his neck to see what was happening. "There's been a mistake," Captain Miller said firmly to Sandra, who had appeared behind him. "One that reflects poorly on this airline and on our appreciation for those who serve. The lieutenant commander will return to her seat in first class." "That is not a request." Zola retrieved her duffel bag. She didn't speak, she didn't need to. As they moved forward, passengers watched with a new, profound interest. Whispers spread. "A SEAL, but she's a woman. Nightfall was that rescue op. The Silver Star is for valor." A young man in economy wearing a Marine Corps t-shirt stood as she passed, offering his own respectful nod. Captain Miller escorted Zola personally. As they reached the first-class cabin, Gregory Dalton shrank in his seat, his smirk replaced by the sick look of a man realizing he'd made a colossal miscalculation. "Seat 1C, the captain announced, gesturing to Zola's original seat. After Zola was seated, Captain Miller remained standing in the aisle, addressing the first-class cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to have Lieutenant Commander Adebayo aboard today. She is one of the very first women ever to complete BUD/S training and serve with SEAL Team 6. Many of us came home to our families because of officers like her. His words settled over the cabin like a physical weight. Passengers who had been so quick to judge now stared with a mixture of embarrassment and awe. "We'll be taking off shortly," the captain concluded, his eyes briefly meeting Gregory Dalton's, the message unmistakable. A flight attendant approached with a fresh glass of water, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm so sorry, Commander." "You couldn't have known," Zola replied simply. "That's the point." Across the aisle, Gregory cleared his throat. I apologize for my earlier comments. I had no idea." Zola cut him off with a simple statement. "You judged what you saw." "Most people do," the words hung in the air, neither accusation nor absolution. In the row beside her, an elderly man in a worn veteran's cap caught her eye and offered a respectful nod. One soldier to another. "Vietnam," he said simply. No other introduction was needed. "Thank you for your service," Zola replied, the words automatic but sincere. "Your father?" the older veteran asked, seeing her check her phone. "The reason you're traveling?" "Navy Admiral," she confirmed. "Cancer." "They're saying days, not weeks." The man nodded, his eyes conveying a universe of understanding that required no further words. As the plane lifted into the sky, another text from David appeared. "He's hanging on by sheer willpower. Keep saying he's waiting for you." For 15 years, Zola had operated in spaces most people never knew existed. Now, she was going home to the father who had set her on this path, a man who understood the cost because he had paid it himself. Admiral Jonathan Adebayo had never pushed her toward service, but when she showed the same unyielding determination that had defined his own career, he had become her fiercest advocate. "If you're going to serve," he told her, "serve with everything you have. Half measures get people killed." As the plane taxied to the gate at Dulles International Airport, Captain Miller's voice came over the intercom one last time. "On behalf of the entire crew, I want to express our deepest gratitude to those who serve our nation, especially those like Lieutenant Commander Adebayo, who ask for no recognition but deserve our highest respect. It has been our honor to bring you home, Commander." The cabin erupted in spontaneous applause. As the seatbelt sign turned off, a remarkable thing happened. The first-class passengers remained seated, waiting. They were waiting for her to deplane first. Zola collected her duffel bag and moved toward the exit, where Captain Miller stood at attention. "Godspeed with your father, Commander," he said. Zola nodded, words momentarily beyond her, and stepped off the plane, heading toward the one mission for which all her training had left her unprepared, saying goodbye. The Washington, D.C. hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and fading hope. Outside room 437, her brother David waited. "You made it," he said, embracing her. Admiral Jonathan Adebayo lay amid white sheets, monitors beeping in rhythm with his weakening heart. His eyes fluttered open as Zola approached, a faint smile touching his face. "My girl," he whispered. "Always on time when it matters." She took his hand. "I'm sorry it took so long." He shook his head faintly. "You were where you needed to be." As afternoon faded into evening, a nurse entered with a tablet. "Commander Adebayo, some people are asking about you." "Something about a flight?" She showed Zola the screen. A news article headline read, "Unsung Hero, Decorated SEAL Recognized Mid-Flight." Below was a passenger's photo of Captain Miller saluting her in the aisle. Her father's eyes found the screen. A weak chuckle escaped him. "Always carrying the weight without complaint," he murmured. "The best serve quietly, but sometimes the quiet ones need to be heard." His gaze sharpened. "The box," he whispered. "In my desk." Before the sun rose, Admiral Adebayo took his final breath, his daughter's hand in his. The funeral at Arlington National Cemetery drew hundreds. Zola stood, ramrod straight, in her dress uniform. Near the back of the crowd, she spotted Captain Miller and, to her surprise, several faces from Flight 237, including Gregory Dalton. They had come to pay their respects to a man they'd never met, because of a daughter they had almost dismissed. After the ceremony, Zola went to her father's study and found the box, a simple wooden case. Inside was a letter addressed to her. My dearest Zola. If you're reading this, I've made my final deployment. I have watched your career from afar, prouder than I can express. The path you chose is harder than most will ever understand. The weight you carry is invisible to civilian eyes. I recognize that weight because I carried it, too. Our greatest service is not measured in medals or missions, but in the moments we choose duty over comfort and others over self. By that measure, you are the finest officer I have ever known. The world may never know your full story, but I do. And I could ask for no greater legacy. Until we meet in calmer waters, Dad. The letter blurred as Zola finally let go of the tears she had held back for so long. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Gregory Dalton approached her hesitantly. Commander, my condolences. And my apologies, again. It's forgotten, Zola said. Maybe it shouldn't be, he replied quietly. My son enlisted yesterday. Army. After I told him about what happened on our flight, he said he wanted to be part of something that mattered. Zola Adebayo had never sought recognition. But in that moment, she realized that in honoring her, a pilot had taught a plane full of strangers to see past appearances, to recognize that valor wore many faces, and that heroes rarely announced themselves. Some battles were fought in distant lands, others on commercial flights, and some in the quiet dignity of a hospital room. All required a courage that deserved to be seen.